afternoon, everybody. So, welcome to Law Day. It's great to see all of you here. I'm Jeremy Travis. I'm the president of this wonderful institution, and it gives me every Law Day is just a jolt of energy into the college and those of us who work here, because we see the power of this institution and what we can do for our students, and we're able to bring together an extended family of people from law schools and law practice and alumni, recent graduates, to come and celebrate John Jay students. So I'm delighted to see you, and happy to be your sort of MC for these remarks and program after your lunch. It's not after lunch. Please keep eating, because you don't want to leave too much food behind. So I want to get just a sense of sort of who's in the room. And I know that some of you have come to say hello, and that's always wonderful. And I want to start, of course, with our students. So anybody who's now currently a student at John Jay, who's here for Law Day, just stand up so we can applaud you and say congratulations for coming and making this your Saturday activity. Thank you. And be seated. And all of the alumni who are here, stand up, and I'm going to ask you in a very loud voice to shout out the name of the law school that you are attending, so that we get a sense of sort of who's in the room in life after John Jay. Okay? Okay. Alumni, stand up. Not all at once, otherwise we wouldn't know. Okay. The furthest in the room, yes.
SUNY Buffalo in 81.
SUNY Buffalo. You're next.
Pace Law School 2009.
Pace Law School 2009. Great. University of Minnesota. Thank you for coming from the snow.
I have not decided.
Okay, you haven't decided. That's okay.
New York Law School.
Which one?
New York Law School.
New York Law School. In the house. You're going to wait till the applause to die down. When you get used to this stuff, you have to. Now you have your moment. Go ahead.
Law Day will help you decide that.
Okay, Law Day will help you decide. Great. Yes.
Fordham Law School, class of 88.
Fordham Law School, and you happen to work at the NYPD right now.
Yes, the Chesapeake Police Department.
Rutgers New York School of Law, 2013, hopefully.
Rutgers, yes. Cardozo, and if you've seen the most recent issue of Justice Matters, you'll know this face on the front page celebrating our liberal arts programs.
New York Law School.
New York Law School, another one, yes. You'll get your moment too, right? Go ahead. Alumni, even judges who are alumni, shout out their law school.
And Jackman Brown, CUNY Law School, class of 86.
CUNY Law School, in the house, great. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, how are you?
Didn't come up to say hello. Hi.
Hofstra Law School. I won't say the year. It's been a while.
Hofstra Law School. We're going to introduce the judges here in a second, but oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah. Yes, you are from?
I just finished my MBA in Metropolitan College of New York in 2012. So I'm planning on law school in 2014.
Great, good to have you here. Congratulations. Judge, you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Sylvia Ash, King Supreme Court, class of Howard University School of Law, class of
Yes, Howard University School of Law. Govinda. Yeah, and your name is? Lavender, right? Way in the back.
Still currently undecided.
Currently undecided. Well, we hope that you get some inspiration while you're here today. So this is a representation. Where's Mike? Alumni.
All right, the largest applause for New York Law School.
This is Mike McCann, who's the president of the Alumni Association, also a member of our board of trustees, also, as you heard, has a law degree at New York Law School. Can we get them all? There's one more? Who's not standing up? There we go. And which law school?
Oh, New York Law School.
And your name is?
Chris Cannon.
Great. New York Law School. So, New York Law School, well represented. So this is a representation of sort of the reach of John Jay. So last year, the participants in the Pre-Law Institute who went on to law school were accepted at 54 law schools around the country. So there's applause. And even better, they were awarded a total of $3.2 million in scholarships. So what we're building here is a pipeline for our students who want to go to law school. This is not a requirement. We want to go to law school to get into very good law schools, and if possible, to get very good financial support for your aspirations so that you can go to law school and graduate. We have some other dignitaries in the room. And we have some members of the advisory board of the Pre-Law Institute who are here, I think. Yes? Yeah, okay. Are they here?
They are.
They are. Do you want to just stand up and be thanked for being advisors to the advisory board? Thank you. Nice to see you. We do what we do because we have fabulous faculty and administrators at John Jay, including our provosters here. Provost Bowers, including our Vice President for Student Affairs who's here, Lynette Francis, including our Dean of Undergraduate Studies, Ann Lopes, and many other administrators and faculty. So we'd like to give you all a round of applause. Please stand up. Yes, you can stand up. Great, thank you. I think we have some students here who are in the Justice Academy. Is that true? Yes? So the Justice Academy, for those who don't know, is a program that we've created so the students who want to start their education at a community college can be admitted to a community college and John Jay. It's a joint degree program. They start at community college and they transfer here after completing their associate degree. And we've reached out to them to make sure that those students who are John Jay students in waiting know that law school is a possibility for them as well. So who's here from the Justice Academy? Any community college students? Yeah, please stand up. We want to welcome you to John Jay. Others, thank you for coming. Another one. Another one. So the point is that this is your future, right? So when you finish, what community college are you at? Sorry? LaGuardia. So when you finish in LaGuardia, get that associate degree, come here, complete your baccalaureate, go on to law school, if that's what you want to do. So it's all possible. That's the message here. We also have just this remarkable coincidence. We're going to do a photograph later. Let's see, here are the names. So talk about sort of the stars being aligned. So here we are celebrating our alumni who've left and gone to law school and done great things. Many of them are lawyers who have gone on to sit on the bench, to be judges. So John Jay has a good representation of people who have practiced law and gone on to be judges. We have not one, not two, not three, but 4 alumni with us today. I will also note all women who are now Supreme Court justices of the state of New York. To be a Supreme Court justice, you can either be elected Supreme Court justice, you can be an acting Supreme Court justice. There are different ways to do it, right? You can sit in, criminal court, civil court, family court, all that sort of stuff. But to be a justice of the Supreme Court in New York State is a great honor. So this is an honor to us that we have so many of our alumni who are now fierce advocates for justice because they are justices. So please join me in welcoming Justice Sylvia Ash, Justice Pam Jackson Brown, Justice Marguerite Graves, and Justice Wilma Goodsmother. Is Wilma here? Wilma's not here, but she's on her way. So we're going to get a picture of this moment when Wilma's here. This is, for us, we're so proud to be affiliated with you and what you've been able to do. We thank you for coming and being an inspiration to our students. And please, all of you, find time to speak to them later. So before I introduce our speaker today, I just want to acknowledge that the lecture that you're about to hear is the Samuel and Anna Jacobs Foundation Lecture on Law in the Legal Profession. This is made possible by that foundation that has provided scholarship support for our students who want to go to law school. So that's something for you to be grateful for. Every year, except for this year, they couldn't make it. The 2 individuals who made that possible, Tova Friedler, who's our former vice president, and her partner, Ernest Rubenstein, have come here to be part of Law Day. They just couldn't make it this year. They will be here, however, for the opening of the moot court and the launch of the Pre-Law Institute on April help me, Ilka? 24th. So they'll be here for that event. If you haven't seen the moot court, which has now finally been finished, it's a spectacular building, and we're going to have a ribbon cutting for that on April 24th. So they are here with us in spirit. So every year we have a speaker at Law Day who is a recognized leader in the legal profession. And if you look at the list of people who've been speakers, it's a remarkable list of individuals: Judge Kaye, Chief Justice of the Court of Appeals; Justice Parrott, Associate Justice of the Court of Appeals of New York State; last year, Michael Cardozo, the Corporation Counsel. Really a stellar group. With no disrespect to any of that, you're about to hear a rock star. So I am so thrilled to be able to introduce you to our speaker today. Theodore Shaw, Ted Shaw, is one of the great legal advocates, thought leaders, civil rights leaders of our country. And I'm sure you've read his bio in our brochure. Let me just give you a sense of why we're so lucky and so grateful that he's here today. He's now a professor at Columbia Law School, and he's entered the academy after an illustrious career. He was, for nearly a quarter century, a lawyer with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. So as you learn your legal history, and you'll come to that moment in 1954 when the Supreme Court said that separate was not equal, Brown versus Board of Education, and you go back and you look at the careful work done by a group of dedicated lawyers, headed by Thurgood Marshall, Jack Greenberg, Constance Baker Motley. There's a whole group of lawyers that have been associated over the years with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund that have brought our country to the point where separate is not equal, and have won a number of other important legal victories that helped us to, through the law, to dismantle Jim Crow. So this organization that Mr. Shaw was affiliated with is one of the most important organizations in the history of this country, because it's made our Constitution come alive in very important ways. He started his career in the Justice Department, in the Civil Rights Division, which is another wonderful place for you to aspire to. He's taught at a number of law schools before now taking his position at Columbia. When Congress wants to know how to think about legal issues, particularly civil rights issues, they've asked Mr. Shaw to come talk to them. When the Supreme Court is hearing important cases in this area, he's often argued before them and before the next level down, the courts of appeals. When there was an issue about affirmative action that was at risk in our country, seriously at risk, that it might be overturned by the Supreme Court, Mr. Shaw was one of the key lawyers in a pair of decisions issued by the Supreme Court on that important topic, and helped to design the strategy and the policy that was defended that day. He is internationally recognized for his expertise in human rights issues, and has worked around the world in Africa, South America, Europe, Asia. He's also sought after by national organizations that care about justice issues, American Constitution Society, International Center for Transitional Justice, something that's part of our international tradition here at John Jay. Think about how societies transition toward justice, I would say our own included. He's also active in a number of other organizations at his alma mater, Western University, where he's now, we're just talking about advising that university as they're doing, as we are doing, trying to bring education back into the prisons of our country. A very important initiative there. And he's on the board of deacons at Abyssinian Baptist Church, a very important institution. So when we were thinking, Elke and I, about who would be your speaker today, we sort of kept our fingers crossed that it might be Ted Shaw. And we are so lucky, you are so lucky. Please join me in welcoming Ted Shaw as our lecturer today.
Thank you very much for that generous introduction. I've actually long been an admirer of your president, and we've been together at conferences here, and we share a common passion for issues of justice. And we're deeply concerned about the criminal justice system and what it's doing to many of the people of our country. So he's the thought leader, and I can't say no to him. Anytime he calls, the answer is going to be yes. So I want to start by acknowledging that my sister, Vivian Buckingham, as I often say, of the Manassas, Virginia Buckinghams, she's with me today. She's also a lawyer. And as all of you know, the people you will know longest in your life, not your childhood friends, although you're blessed if you know them all your life, your classmates, not even your parents, but your siblings. And so my sister Vivian, I've known her longer than anybody else, and that's a real blessing. She went to Columbia Law School. Somewhere along the way we kind of crossed each other, and she's my big sister because she went to Columbia after I did. But I'm very proud of her, so I want you to know who she is, my sister Vivian. Her passion in law, her expertise is environmental law, environmental issues. So that's what she does. I want to start by asking you all a question. And you may not quite get where I'm coming from. How many of you know Paul Laurence Dunbar, who he is? So, some of you, thank God, but not all of you. And so I want to introduce the rest of you to Paul Laurence Dunbar for a moment. And I want to encourage you to get to know him, because he is one of our nation's great poets. I didn't say great African-American poets, although he was an African-American. I said he's one of our nation's great poets, and we ought to know who he is. So let me read, indulge me for a minute while I read one of his pieces of work. It's not very long. He wrote in the idiom of his people, the common idiom of his people at the time. And this book that I have, I need to go, I'm a bibliophile. I love books, and I love to find, in particular, some of the old books that are hard to find. So I need to get this one repaired. But this was published in 1929 or thereabouts. Okay, so this is called The Lawyer's Ways. I've been listening to them lawyers in the courthouse up the street, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm most completely beat. First, one fellow rise to argue, and he boldly waded in, and he dressed the trembling prisoner in a coat of deep-dyed sin, while he painted him all over in a hue of blackest crime, and he speared his reputation with the thickest kind of grime, till I found myself a-wondering in a misty way and dim, how the Lord had come to fashion such an awful man as him. Then the other lawyer started, and with brimming tearful eyes said his client was a martyr that was brought to sacrifice, and he give to that same prisoner every blessed human grace, till I saw the light of virtue fairly shining from his face. Then I own that I was puzzled how such a thing could rightly be, and this aggravating question seems to keep a puzzling me. So will someone please inform me, and this mystery unroll, how an angel and a devil can possess the self-same soul? That's Paul Laurence Dunbar. And I could say a great deal about that poem, because it's profound in a lot of ways that might not be as apparent until you live a little while, because all of us are possessed by angels and devils. But on another level, it says a lot about lawyers and law, and also human nature. I grew up, my sister and I grew up here, first in Harlem and then in the Bronx. Those of you who know the Bronx, Castle Hill projects in the Bronx. And we both went to Catholic school for 12 years. We were talking with one of our table mates about that, so did he. You might have heard I'm a deacon at Abyssinian Baptist Church. Our family goes back in Abyssinian generations, so I guess that made us backlinks. You know, we're New Yorkers. I knew nothing, almost nothing, about law when I came out of high school, except that I wanted to practice law. And I wanted to practice law because I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. It wasn't so much I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer as much as I wanted to be engaged in that great struggle that was going on when I was a child for civil rights. That was the most important thing I could see going on, and I clearly wanted to make my life one that was useful. And in fact, I kind of stumbled into my college. I went to Wesleyan University. But I stumbled into Wesleyan after applying, among other places, to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And John Jay, you know, I figured that if one wanted to be a lawyer, that sounded like the right place to go. But Wesleyan gave me a lot of money at the time, and I found my way up to Wesleyan. I thought that my near-miss connection with John Jay, that's about all it would be. But then I find myself here today, and I've been here a number of times, and you know, as I said, I'm very happy to be here. And this is a wonderful new building you have here. It's just fabulous. My sister and I were both saying we both went to Columbia Law School, and if any of you have been up to that building, it's better now than it used to be, but it was a disaster when I was a student there. The architect should have been drawn and quartered. They saved it, made it better, but it's not like this building. This is a wonderful building. It's a wonderful place to study and to form relationships and do everything that you do when you're at this time of your lives where you find yourselves. So I found my way to Wesleyan, and then after Wesleyan came back to New York, and as you heard, went to Columbia Law School. And from Columbia, I went to the Justice Department, the Civil Rights Division. That was one of the jobs. That was my dream job. The other job was the NAACP Legal Defense. And so I'm going to ask you another question. How many of you have heard of Charles Hamilton Houston? How many of you know who he is? Okay, so still some in the room, thank God, but most of you don't. And so I want to say a word about Charles Hamilton Houston. I want you to know who he is. It's important. In fact, I claim that Charles Hamilton Houston has had as much of an effect on this country for the better as any other lawyer living in any other time. Now think about the lawyers whom you know about. You know about early American lawyers. You may know, for example, about Daniel Webster. Great lawyer. I don't remember how many times he argued in the Supreme Court. It was over 100, maybe 150, maybe 200. I don't remember. You know, you all, I don't know if you know some of the lawyers of earlier eras. But Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer. A lot of people have written and have studied his legal career before he became first a member of Congress and then eventually went to the White House. And some of you may know about some of the 20th century lawyers. who were famed in their time. Clarence Darrow, the great litigator of the early 20th century, who took on a lot of labor causes primarily, and also some race cases. But probably increasingly, probably a lot of you don't even know about Clarence Darrow. There was a time when anybody who wanted to be a lawyer knew who Clarence Darrow was. Charles Hamilton Houston, born in Washington, D.C., African American. His father was a lawyer. And in the 1920s, actually before that, had a good education. But he went off to study in college at Amherst College, one of the best colleges in the country then, one of the best liberal arts colleges in the country now, when there were almost no African Americans at Amherst. Went on from there, where he excelled, to Harvard Law School. Almost no African Americans, in fact, no African Americans other than him, there when he attended law school. And then came back to Washington, went into practice with his father, did the kinds of things that small and solo practitioners did, wills, divorces, criminal defense work, but also along the way began to take up the causes of African Americans who were being discriminated against on the basis of race. Began to teach at a night law school that would eventually become Howard University Law School. And eventually became the dean of Howard Law School. And he was a taskmaster. He used to say, because he didn't want to hear any excuses, no tea for the feeble, no crepe for the dead. He believed that lawyers were either social engineers or parasites on society. His star student in the class of 1933 was Thurgood Marshall. And number 2 in that class, Thurgood Marshall was number 1, was a lawyer that probably almost none of you know about. Oliver Hill from Virginia, who lived to 100 years and died just a few years ago, leaving a tremendous mark on this country. These people should not be forgotten. Charlie Houston turned Howard Law School into a factory for civil rights lawyers. And it wasn't only those who studied at Howard, but his reach went to those who became the pioneers, the first African American to serve on the federal bench. William Hastings, was in his orbit, and in fact was a relative. And many of those who would become the lawyers, in fact, all of them, who eventually litigated what became Brown versus Board of Education, which was 5 cases, which in my view split American history into half in many ways, into a kind of a BC and an AD. The BC being the era of slavery and Jim Crow, when African Americans were subordinated legally by law, and the AD being the period after that. The BC being a lot more lengthy, even today, than the AD. You should know who Charlie Houston was. He died 4 years before Brown was decided. But he had put in motion and trained the cadre of lawyers, including Thurgood Marshall, who would lead the legal struggle that changed the face of America. And it is a shame that more Americans don't know about him. Even in law schools, we don't teach about Charles Houston. As I say, he has had more of an impact on this country for the better, or as much at least, as any other lawyer, dead or alive. And so I wanted to say a word about Charles Houston, but I also want to say a word about the lawyers, many other lawyers, countless. Many of them famous in their time, but increasingly being forgotten. And many of them you never heard of. President Travis mentioned, I believe, Constance Baker Motley. Connie Motley was the first woman to serve as a federal judge in this country, first woman of color, first African American woman, one of the first women, period. Grew up in New Haven, was the first woman lawyer to work at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Argued about 20 cases for the Supreme Court, lost one. And the one she lost was eventually reversed by the Supreme Court, so she was fond of saying that she won all her cases, and it took a while for the Supreme Court to catch up with her, about 20 years. Connie Motley, you ought to know who she was. You ought to know who Jack Greenberg was and is. Jack Greenberg is one of the few surviving lawyers who litigated Brown, who was on the staff of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Many of the lawyers I'm talking about, if not most of them, were African Americans, but not all of them. Jack Greenberg, white and Jewish from New York City, fought in the Marines in World War II at Iwo Jima. I heard Jack say one time in his nonplussed way when he was asked about a student, he became the dean of the College of Columbia after he left the Legal Defense Fund, and he was asked about a student protest, and there was a lot of pressure on him, and he said, "Oh, I've been through worse." But he didn't say what he was talking about. Well, this is a man who had been at Iwo Jima, had faced literally fire and life and death. Jack Greenberg is one of the greatest lawyers in American history. And I can go on and talk about Bob Carter, he died last year or a year before that. Bob Carter, one of the lawyers who litigated Brown, and who was as responsible as anyone else, if not more, for the strategy of Brown versus Board of Education. These names probably don't mean anything to you. James Nabert, former president of Howard University, whose son for many years, and who's in his last days now, is also a great lawyer. I had the honor of meeting these people and getting to know almost all of them. Charlie Houston, obviously not. But all of the rest of them I came to know, and meet. And that was such a privilege, is such a privilege. But there's so many lawyers, around the country who were maybe one of a handful of lawyers in their states who would do civil rights cases at the time. I could call out their names, C.B. King in Georgia. I could call out Avon Williams in Tennessee. I could call A.P. Tureau down in Louisiana. All these names mean nothing to you, but they meant a great deal to the thousands and thousands of clients whom they served in everyday matters, but even more to those who were fighting against subordination and segregation on the basis of race. I'm trying to tell you about something here. What I'm trying to tell you about is the importance of lawyers and law. Even today, that era of Jim Crow segregation is over. But there's so much left to do. There's so much work every day. Look at the mass incarceration of people of color in this country. One of the things that kept me up in many evenings, if I went to bed struggling and thinking about anything else when I was at the Legal Defense Fund that I was uncomfortable about, there were things that I was uncomfortable about. It was the thousands and thousands of letters we got that we couldn't even read through at times. People in prison claiming to be innocent. Now, they weren't all innocent, but somewhere among those who were writing were those who were innocent. And, they needed lawyers, they needed help. We didn't have the staff to do all those cases. Even if they weren't innocent, there were people who still were in need of legal representation, who weren't getting due process or fair representation or competent lawyering. There's a tremendous amount of work to do today. If you haven't read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, read it. It talks about one of the new battlefronts with respect to justice in this country that your generation is called upon to address, to be engaged. Now let me be clear. Not all of you, in fact very few of you, if you go to law school, are going to be civil rights lawyers. I understand that. Some of you will work for big law firms and will represent corporations. Corporations, we're told by the Supreme Court, are people too. Whether they're people or not, they need representation, and I don't mind if you represent them. And frankly, whether I mind or not, doesn't matter. But the point I'm making is that, you know, there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of you are going to do all kinds of different things, no matter what you do. I want you to do it, I hope that you do it with an understanding of the kind of importance of having integrity and keeping your eye on, nonetheless, serving the community of which you are a part. I read the poem I read by Dunbar because, you know, I've represented people who are on death row who have done terrible things, you know, who have taken people's lives. Now, you know, when you go behind their stories, no matter how many of these folks you hear about and read about, it's almost the same story in some ways, in one way or another. You know, usually dysfunctional families, no father, beaten when they were young, abused sexually or otherwise. You know, they began to act out when they were young in ways that got them in trouble, got them involved in the criminal justice system, and before you know it, they're on the path to perdition. I'm not making excuses for what they do. You know, if somebody takes a life, I don't make excuses for what they do. There are reasons for what they do, even if there aren't excuses, but they need representation. It's important to represent even those who do terrible things. It's important not only for their sake that they get the best representation that they deserve, they need, but it's important for all of us because we have a society that's very quick to dispose of people, to judge them, to lock them away for life, or even to take away their lives. And we know that human beings are imperfect, that we make mistakes. But even if we get it right, it's important to get it right while we're getting it right, if you understand what I mean. You know, I've had people, even a lawyer, say to me recently, have you ever represented, or how could you represent somebody who you know is guilty? I don't have a problem doing that. That's not the issue. Everybody needs representation. My job is to represent somebody if I represent him who's guilty of doing something or may have done it. Actually, guilty is the legal tag once you go through the process. Before that, there's a question about whether they did it or not. But they're not guilty until they're convicted, as far as I'm concerned. But the prosecutors are on the other side. It's their job to prosecute them and to keep society safe from people who pose a threat to society. I understand that. What I'm saying is that there's work for all of us. But even on the prosecutorial side, it is so important to do justice as opposed to racking up notches on a belt. You know, it's important to think carefully about how we prosecute people and what the penalties are, what the punishment is. You know, I think what I'm trying to get across to you is how much we need lawyers coming from communities in particular that are sensitive to the need to have representation through and by and of people of color. Not exclusively, but we need that. God knows we need it. Many people will tell some of you that the path that you're on is not one on which you're likely to succeed. You're not the stuff of lawyers. How wrong they are. They don't know about Charlie Houston. They don't know about Constance Baker Motley. They don't know about Avon Williams and A.P. Thoreau and all those lawyers I talked about. And they may never know. But I want you to know, and I want you to be inspired by them. And I want you to figure out something to do with your life that is significant and that makes a change. There's so much work for you to do. There are lots of folks who want to do other kind of work, and some of you may do that work too. There's a lot of work that needs to be done that nobody else will do unless it's people like you. And they won't do it in the way that you can do it because they won't bring to it what you can bring to it. So, you know, you think about that poem. One of the things that I've realized without, you know, when you're raised as a Catholic, some things never come out of you. You know, there's a struggle between being a Catholic and a lawyer that some of you don't know about. You know, and the struggle is that confession is good for the soul, but it's bad for the case. And so, what I'm saying though is that I've come to understand as I've gotten older that the idea that we're all pure and good, you know, that doesn't work very well. You know, we all in fact have that. If you remember those old cartoons I used to love, that little angel on one shoulder and the devil on this shoulder. You remember Vivian, those cartoons that you watch. The angel saying, you know, oh, be a good boy. You know, don't do, you know, don't be mean to your sister. And the devil saying, don't be a sap. You know, we all have that internal struggle all our lives. You know, human beings are very complex. We are all very complex. And so it's important for us to understand that in all the work that we do and know that there's room for lawyers on both sides. Okay. Nelson Mandela, a lawyer. Gandhi, a lawyer. Barack Obama, a lawyer. You know, I can go on and on and on. Even if you don't practice law, because that's another speech, but all of them changed the world. They didn't do it in their role as lawyers, but they brought their legal education to bear on who and what they were and are, in Barack Obama's case. This is a profession, some people increasingly think it's just a business, but it's a profession, that there's a lot of honor in it. And so I hope you find your way to it. You can do it. I wish you the best. Godspeed and God bless you.
So we want to so Mr. Shaw said that he applied to John Jay. This is the first time I've heard this. So I'm going to pull out that file and say, what could we have done to get through here? But it's never too late. You're always welcome to consider yourself one of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So as a token of our gratitude for your being here today, we present you with this plaque that says to Theodore M. Shaw, Professor of Professional Practice at Columbia University School of Law, for his long-standing commitment to the legal community, March 16th, 2013. Thank you. This person wants to take a picture of us.
Thank you.
So a talk by a lawyer that starts with a poem. My goodness, this was wonderful. So, it's been a number of years since I taught a class here at John Jay, but I always had this required reading in the New York Times. Today's New York Times has on the front page a story that I would commend to your attention. It acknowledges 50 years after another important Supreme Court decision, Gideon versus Wainwright, which made possible the assignment of legal representation to people charged with serious crimes. Read it. It is another sort of call to action about how far we've strayed from that vision brought by a pro se plaintiff in the case of Mr. Gideon, that justice had to mean something. And it starts with a story of a man who was just sentenced to, I think, 17 months in prison for failure to pay a few $1,000s in child support. So we have a long way to go, and as Mr. Shaw said, it's all up to you. We count on you. So we have another wonderful tradition at Law Day, which is we honor one of our own, one of our alumni, for his or her contributions to the legal profession. And we're in for another treat. And so I'm going to introduce our speaker in a second in some detail. But I want to acknowledge first that Paula Anderson is her name, that she has also come with family. So there are a number of people related to our speaker, our alumni speaker. Is the number 10 right, Paula? Something like that? 12. So I don't know who they all are, except they're all over there. So would you all and here too? All of you who are relatives of Paula Howell Anderson, just join. We want to thank you for coming, and please stand up and to be recognized. Great to have you here. And there are some people who are young enough for me to sort of talk about your future as applicants to John Jay College. Young gentlemen here. You know, it's a nice campus. You can find your way around here, and the admissions office is on the lobby, right next to the entrance. So I know it's a little early for you guys, but we definitely want to have you think about John Jay. So Paula Anderson is an alum of John Jay. She was valedictorian of her class, who went from John Jay to Harvard Law School. And when we first met, something about the car going from New York to Cambridge. What did you put? You had a sign out?
That was my brother's doing outside and said, look who's going to Harvard.
Look who's going to Harvard, right? So was she, you did that? You did that. So it was literally, so in the car window? With your picture, right? So I just love that story. So, so let me just tell you some things about Paula so you get a sense of how she's an emerging leader in the legal community of New York. So that status gets recognized in lots of ways. First of all, she's a partner in a law firm. She does litigation all around the world on international issues. She represents corporations, but does a lot of work on human rights training in countries around the world. Again, speaking very much to our international mission. So, for example, she's taught trial advocacy for the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda and at the International Criminal Court. So any international criminal justice majors here, talk to her, because that's her area of expertise. After graduating from Harvard Law School, she was a clerk to the Honorable Diane Lebedeff in the New York Supreme Court. See, clerks from the Supreme Court. They go on to do wonderful things in private practice. So she's been named as a rising star in the area of international law by a magazine called Super Lawyers. So people read this with great interest to see who's been identified as a comer. And then just last year, she was awarded by the National Organization of Women, another very important national organization that is watching out for those who are coming up, is one of the 2012 Women of Power and Influence. Not just influence, not just power and influence, I love that. Another important outlet, Crane's New York Business Magazine, called her one of the 40 under 40. So each year they identify 40 people under the age of 40 who are making their mark in the world. So you'll hear from Paula in a second. So it's not like empowered comes from within with this woman. That influence comes from within. There's a quiet power, quiet strength about her that's really quite remarkable. It's being felt all around the country and all around the world. And she's one of ours. And we're very pleased that Paula Howell Anderson has joined the Board of Trustees of our foundation. And she's been an active member. And she has a particular interest in the Pre-Law Institute and in you, which Bill is very happy about, among others. So she has an interest in your success. And she wants others to follow the path that she has blazed for you of doing well at John Jay, going on to law school, having a spectacular legal career, being a fierce advocate for justice, and being recognized for your influence, as was true with Mr. Shaw, your influence beyond your own clients and beyond your own practice. So please join me in welcoming Paula Howell Anderson.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's certainly wonderful to be back here at John Jay after so many years and getting reacquainted with the college and with President Travis, and most recently being a part of this wonderful pre-law institute. It's so amazing that we have this wonderful program, because certainly when I was here as a student some 15 years ago, we did not have these resources available to us. So you should all consider yourselves very privileged to have this great opportunity. President Travis, thank you so much for your very kind remarks. And also thank you, Professor Shaw, for giving us that piece of history about the legal industry and all the great leaders that came before us, and hopefully we can emulate those leaders, not just in my generation, but also the generations to come. I thought I would use this time today to give you a little bit of my own backstory, how I came to John Jay, what my career has been since leaving John Jay, and now how I've sort of come full circle, and now I'm back here describing my journey to you. Like many of you in the audience, I come from a family of immigrants. My parents who are here today are immigrants from Barbados, and actually I grew up in Barbados, went to high school in Barbados, and then came to the United States for college. And having grown up on the islands, I had no idea about the college application process in the U.S. We did not have any lawyers in our immediate family, and the extent of my research for college was basically speaking to one of my friends who I had gone to law school with, who I had gone to high school with in Barbados, and she was at the time attending City College, and I asked her, well, do you know of any good colleges with a reputable pre-law program? And immediately she said John Jay College. And John Jay was actually the only college that I applied to, and it was somewhat of a daunting process. And I'm sure my parents might remember this. As trekking down to the admissions office, I did not know at the time what the SATs were. I had never taken the SATs. As I mentioned, didn't know anything about the application process. But John Jay was kind enough to take me anyway. And not only did they take me, but they actually gave me an entire year's worth of credit for pre-college courses that I had taken while I was in high school in Barbados, so I was able to graduate in just 3 years. After coming to John Jay, I was able to forge very valuable relationships with my professors here. I had some wonderful mentors, and I actually leaned on those resources when it came time to apply to law school, because yet again, I had no clue about the process. And fortunately, we had a very helpful Office of Career Services at the time, and they guided me in the right direction in terms of what prep courses to take, and also not just the application process itself, but also providing guidance as to what types of courses to take that would make me a much more attractive candidate to go to law school. And amongst those courses that I was encouraged to take were internships, well, externships at the time, with, I did one with a congressman in Brooklyn, and another one with a state Supreme Court justice in New York. And the latter experience was quite amazing, and I think actually really changed my destiny, because the judge that I clerked for took me under her wing and really allowed me to have like a substantive experience in terms of analyzing the cases that were before her. And I was fortunate enough to be able to draft a legal opinion that was then published in the New York Law Journal. And I ended up using that legal opinion as one of the writing samples for my law school application. I really think that helped to set me apart from the other applicants. And before I knew it, Harvard was knocking as well as, some of the other Ivy League institutions that you might have heard of. So I was able to go on to law school. When I graduated, I went immediately to the firm I'm currently at right now, Sherman Sterling. Sort of worked my way up through the ranks, and after 9 years, I was made a partner there. And it has been an amazing journey, and I must say that John Jay College has really been sort of the gateway to the American dream for me. And a lot of the skills and the substantive expertise that I bring to my practice today was really founded and based on the wonderful educational experience that I received here at this institution. So I would encourage all of you in the audience who are thinking about going to law school to really take advantage of the wonderful resources that you have in terms of some of the best talent in the body of professors available here. You have state-of-the-art facilities. I've been so impressed coming back, seeing this new building, seeing the library, the computer lab, all of the resources that are available to you, and particularly this Supreme Law Institute, where you have the opportunity to meet legal professionals and really establish relationships and mentorships, because that is so important as you move forward with your careers. Now, it's interesting that President Travis mentioned this Woman of Power and Influence Award that I received last year from the National Organization of Women. I remember when I first mentioned to one of my colleagues at Sherman Sterling that I was getting this award, she paused for a minute and looked at me and sort of nodded and said, "Wow, that's interesting. What does it mean to be, a person of power and influence?" And and I started to scratch my head because, I certainly didn't know the answer. But then I gave it a little bit more thought, and I really think that, being someone of power is really someone who has the ability to influence the lives of others. And that's something that a law degree empowers you to do. And it's not just with respect to defending corporations, which is I guess some would call it a necessary evil. But it's also being able to give back, whether it's through pro bono work, which I do a lot of at my firm, as President Travis mentioned. I do a lot of work in the area of human rights law. I assisted in the prosecution of the perpetrators of the Rwandan genocide at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. In a couple of weeks, I'm getting ready to go to The Hague to train prosecutors there on a case, a trial that they have coming up, which is actually very interesting because one of the defendants in that trial is the president-elect of Kenya. I don't know how many of you have been following the recent elections in Kenya, but the newly elected president is actually standing trial at the International Criminal Court, and his case is set to begin in May, and my team and I will be heading over there to help the prosecutors get ready for that matter. So that will certainly be a historical case and with a lot of interesting legal and international law issues, and I'm really looking forward to that. Now, I thought I would leave you with a story that I thought of when my colleague asked me about being in a position of power and influence, and it relates to an incident that occurred maybe about 5 years ago now, I was in Sierra Leone, which is a country on the west coast of Africa, in Western Africa. I was speaking at an international law conference, and for those of you who may not know, Sierra Leone is one of the poorest countries in Africa. It's very impoverished. It's resource rich. It has gold, diamonds. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Blood Diamonds, but that movie was based in large part on incidents that occurred in Sierra Leone. But it's been war ravaged now for a number of years, and just stark poverty and very, very poor infrastructure. In fact, when we flew into the airport, we actually had to take a helicopter from the airport to our hotel because the roads were so terrible, there was no way to drive on the road. So there was I in this helicopter at 2 o'clock in the morning in the pitch dark, because by the way, they also have no electricity, everything's by generator. My mom is looking at me, quite aghast right now, because I don't think, they've ever heard the story about, me on this helicopter in the middle of the night, in a remote war-ravaged country in West Africa. But I ended up staying at a hotel there, one of the local hotels, and I will admit I was a bit spoiled by this point. I've been working at Sherman Sterling for a number of years and traveling on my corporate cases and used to staying at 5-star hotels with all the amenities, and I show up at this hotel and we have no hot water. And so every morning and every evening there would be a young man working at the hotel who would bring me a bucket of hot water so I could take a bath. And every day, faithfully, he would come up with this bucket of hot water, and I would complain to him, about how unacceptable the situation was, and this would never happen in the U.S. And he would just nod at me, shake his head, and then quietly go on about his business. So this happened, a couple of days, and finally, it occurred to me that instead of focusing so much on myself and my situation, that I should really reach out to him and find out about what he's going through. So I turned to him and I asked him, I said, tell me a little bit about yourself. And he went on to tell me the story about how he was working at a hotel to pay to go to school because he was pretty much on his own. His mother had died when he was a baby. His dad was killed in a civil war in Sierra Leone. And for him, education was really, his ticket out of those dire circumstances in which he had found himself. And at that moment, I pledged to him that I would sponsor his education. And from that day, I've been paying for him to go to school. And it's been a real struggle for him because they don't have the resources there, and he was using the facilities at the hotel to gain internet access, to do his research and so on. And then about a year after he started going to school, the hotel closed, so he lost his job, and he basically had to do all of his studying from internet cafes, and of course that got very costly. But he persevered, and I'm very proud to say that exactly 1 week from today, he will be graduating from the University of Sierra Leone with a degree, a master's degree in business administration and finance. And to me, that is a story of exerting your power to influence someone else's life. And I think that has been, an even more rewarding experience for me. He probably doesn't realize this, but to just have been in that position to impact his life, I'm just so grateful for that. And so I would urge all of you to think about ways that you can also give back, and as Professor Shaw said, use your law degree to do good in whatever ways that you can think of. And also don't be discouraged, don't be deterred from going on to law school and trying to realize your dreams. I know there are a lot of critics out there now who argue that the cost of law school has become so prohibitive for so many people, and with the decline in in the economy, and the legal industry has also been hit hard, and people are finding it hard to get jobs. They are advocating that you not apply to law school. But I certainly do not subscribe to this notion. I know President Travis does not. You know, if that is your passion, you should follow it. You should find a way. This young man in Sierra Leone had very little resources available to him, and he was able to stay focused and stay disciplined and use what little means he had to achieve his dream. So hopefully I will be back here in 10, 15 years from now listening to your own stories of your success and how you turned your experience at John Jay into a gateway for your own American dream, however you decide to define that. Thank you so much.
So I feel like we just applauded the speech. But there was a moment there where I think all of us were particularly touched by the story of a man in Sierra Leone who was about to get a master's degree a week from today because of this woman to my left. So she deserves another round of applause for that. Really fantastic. So this is to Paula Howell Anderson, partner with Sherman Sterling, for her long-standing commitment to the legal community, March 16, 2013. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. We live among giants. It's really great. We are all, I think, mindful of the support of our family at moments like this. And I want to ask two very special people in the audience to be recognized on behalf of Paula. Would the parents just stand up for a moment of recognition from all of us for providing her the guidance and inspiration and support. You must be so proud. So I have this is now sort of inside the community point I want to make. So how many people are graduating this year? So as you may know, there's a little thing going on about the commencement. Many of you have spoken to me in the ways that people speak to me through internet and other petitions and the like. I want you to ask you just to be patient another couple of days. We're in discussions. Vice President of Student Affairs, Francis and I, with some student leaders. I think you'll be happy where we end up. But I didn't want to come here today knowing that's on everybody's mind about commencement. It's going to be great. Trust me, it's going to be fun. Okay, so we're going to work it out. We hear you. No one else needs to know what we're talking about unless you read the books. So there's a moment in Law Day when I get to, and she'll be embarrassed and blush and all that, when I get to say something about the moment I'm about to call the stage. The Pre-Law Institute is what it is because of the alcoholics. So she'll say all the things that one should say at moments like this. I have a wonderful staff, and I couldn't do it without the faculty, and thank you, President Travis, and the board. She'll say all those things because she's that type of person. We know different, which is that she is the driving force behind the Pre-Law Institute. She's made it what it is today. Every time I interact with students at the Pre-Law Institute, they say, oh, Ms. Holden, she's wonderful, she's great, I've got to be in touch, I've got to talk to her. I don't know how she does everything she does. I know she has a staff, but it's really quite remarkable story of taking from nothing, other than an idea, building this engine that now exists at John Jay, that is now attracting high school students to John Jay so they can go to Harvard. Right? So that's the engine we've created, this attracting more and more students here because of the power. It's not of an idea, of an actualized idea, a realized idea that Vilka has made possible. So she wants to do some other things here, but before she even sets foot on the stage, between where she's standing now, she deserves applause for all of those steps between there and there. So we have something that we're going to do that I think you start, right?
We have some wonderful things to do,
Yes.
actually.
And I asked, this is my script, I asked the all to come to the podium, I've done that. Oh, for the awarding of the Nelson Test Prep. Right. So tell us what it is.
Thank you for those really kind words, but I want you all to know, and those of you with whom I've interacted, you know this. It's true. This isn't done. This work of the Pre-Law Institute isn't done alone. It's done because there are faculty who allow me to bend their arms behind their backs and have them come and help instruct our students during times when other people are on break. And it's because of your dedication as students to, yeah, there were some people who actually took January off, but those of you who were active with the Pre-Law Institute, you were in Boot Camp 1, as you know, the first week, Boot Camp 2, the second week, and a mock trial program the third week. And so you know that we had 2 days off during January where everyone else had a longer break. So I first want to say, before I ask Carolyn Nelson to join us up here, I want to say how grateful I am for the support of President Travis and Provost Bowers and Dean Ann Lopes and all the faculty and staff here at John Jay who help me and members of the Pre-Law Institute team, because it is certainly a team, to make sure that we're able to help John Jay students move forward. And I should say John Jay students and alumni move forward in their dreams to achieve a legal career. I'm grateful to have that opportunity, frankly. So, and so the other thing that I want to say is that this is in fact one of my favorite times of this day, even though I really enjoy hearing from incredible speakers. I really love the opportunity to give away someone else's money. So Ms. Nelson, Carolyn Nelson, who is the primary instructor for both our LSAT prep program, a 16-week program that has helped tens of John Jay students over the course of the last 3 years get into law school and earn really great LSAT scores, and in fact receive hundreds of thousands of dollars in law school scholarships, is generous enough to offer two scholarships to full-length LSAT prep courses. So many of you students went ahead and applied this morning through the raffle, and I have the opportunity now to select those names. We got to select 2, correct? 2. Fabulous. I don't know whose I have. Okay. So, the first LSAT prep scholarship goes to Tiffany Maynard. Tiffany, conveniently seated towards the front. And the second LSAT scholarship goes to Harry Bada. Harry. Well, I think that we have the policy of going on to the next name. Is that right? I think so. You know how I feel about finishing pre-law boot camp. You get the certificate only if you complete the program. Sorry. Okay. So the second recipient of the full-length LSAT prep course scholarship is Jennifer Hoyt. Jennifer, please join us. Jennifer? Jennifer, there you are. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your support. I also want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the speakers. Many of you John Jay alums, also many of you alums from law schools where I've had the privilege of working, and for allowing me really to twist your arm to come here and speak to these students and connect with them. I'm so grateful for your willingness to do that. Thank you so much.
So if you look outside, you'll see that the weather has changed a little bit since this morning. And our alum, who's now at the University of Minnesota, we're blaming you for bringing, we thought we were done with the snow, but what a beautiful sight out of our new building. So just a final thank you from me to Theodore Shaw for the leadership that you've shown and the wisdom and passion and humanity that you exhibited today. We really appreciate you being here. And Paul Howell Anderson for being just a great friend, a great exemplar of what's possible from the John Jay as a start. I didn't know you didn't apply anywhere else. So we appreciate that a lot of confidence, and thanks to the parents. Most importantly, thanks to the students for coming. You are why we do the work we do. We expect great things from you. We appreciate your coming here today to absorb and to learn and to think about yourselves and your future. And we're here to help make great things possible and make dreams come true. So you're on to your afternoon forum, which is back L61, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks for coming, everybody.